I'm just guessing, but I expect you would prefer to have a smartwatch that does everything you need, looks good at as low a price as possible. And the Huawei Band 10 might be just that smartwatch. So I picked up two to scientifically test if that is indeed the case. This standard black one and this quite good looking yellow one. You can likely pick up a Huawei Band 10 for less than 50 bucks, and if it can do most of the things that it promises, there might be no need to pick up an expensive Google Pixel Watch, Samsung Galaxy Watch or Apple Watch. However, in this video I will likely have to shatter that dream at least partially, since I encountered quite a few issues with this brand new Huawei device. Luckily, it's not all bad news, and for some of you, this will still be the best choice out there. In this video, we will scientifically and systematically test the health and sports tracking capabilities of the Huawei Band 10, so let's get to it. By the way, for those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Rob and I'm a postdoctoral scientist specializing in biological data analysis. Let's dive right into the testing, and let's start by testing the heart rate tracking performance. And the first exercise we'll be looking at is a relatively easy exercise for most watches to track: indoor cycling. That's relatively easy since there's relatively little motion and also not that much tension on my arm. And this plot right here shows you an overview of 4 indoor cycling sessions I did with the Huawei Band 10, where I compare it against a reference ECG chest strap from Polar, which is along the horizontal axis, which can generally record my heart rate very accurately. And on the vertical axis we have the heart rate as measured by the Huawei Band 10. Each dot in this plot is a single matched heart rate measurement, and if the measurements would perfectly agree, all values should be along this blue line right here. And as you can see, it actually looks quite okay. Most points are on or super close to the blue line, so the fact that there's a lot of black along the blue line means there's a lot of overlapping dots, so a lot of points very close to the blue line. This is, by the way, for the black Huawei Band 10 that I wore. And we also have a correlation value up here, which is this R value up here, which is 0.98. This R value is just an indication of how good the agreement is between the Huawei Band 10 and the reference device. And the fact that it's very close to 1 is very good, because 1 is the maximum value it can have. So 0.98 is really good. But let's now take a look at the other Huawei Band. Did it do just as well? And yes, luckily it did. It looks very similar. There's a few more points maybe away from the blue line. So this is the black one right here, and here we have the yellow one. But it looks more or less the same, I would say. And also the correlation value is the same at 0.98. So looking quite good. Still, let's take a look at some of the individual rides to see why there's still some points above the blue line right here. Oh, and I actually misspoke before. I didn't do 4 indoor cycling sessions, but just 2. But I did them with both of the watches. So I have a total of 4 matching rides to work with. And here we have the results for the first ride with the yellow Huawei Band 10. Along the horizontal axis, we have the clock time, and my heart rate is along the vertical axis. With in blue-green my heart rate according to the reference Polar H10 ECG chest strap, and in red my heart rate according to the Huawei Band 10, so the yellow one. And as you can see, they actually agree quite well. Some of those really quick changes in heart rate weren't detected by the Huawei Band 10, so it misses these full dips in my heart rate right here, and also these peaks right here. But overall, this is looking quite good, so this will be good enough for me. And we see something similar for the black one. So these were the results for the yellow one, these are the results for the black one, and they look more or less identical. They just struggle with quick changes in heart rate, but overall pretty accurate, I would say. And for the second session, it also looks pretty good. So here are the results for the yellow one. Again, it's mostly following along quite well. Only right here is there a slight delay in picking up on that decrease in heart rate, but it was able to pick up on that full dip in my heart rate. And also for the black one, it looks more or less identical. It also struggled a little bit right here, and also here in the beginning. Here the other one did a little bit better. Overall, this would definitely be good enough for me. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do more exercises because of a small injury, but I think based on this, we can say that for indoor cycling, it appears to be good enough. But let's put these results into the perspective of many of the other devices I've tested in the past. And you can see that in this overview right here. So here we compare the performance of the Huawei Band 10 to many of the other devices I've tested before. Along the horizontal axis, that correlation value we were looking at before, so we want it to be as close to 1 as possible. And on the vertical axis, I ordered the watches from worst to best. So the further to the right and the higher device is, the better is its correlation with the reference device. And I marked both Huawei Band 10s in red right here. You're not supposed to be able to read this exactly, but you can at least see their position relative to many other devices. So I would say they're in the upper middle class of devices, though there are better devices out there. But let's zoom in a bit so we can at least read some of those labels. And that's displayed right here. So these are just some of the better performing watches. So just the watches with a correlation of 0.9 or higher. And as you can see, even amongst these, the Huawei Band 10 is doing quite well. As I said before, it's not amongst the absolute top, which is basically Apple Watches, Pixel Watches, and potentially some Huawei devices like the Huawei Watch Fit 2. But still they're in sort of the second tier of devices, which is quite good. They're actually quite close to some other Huawei devices like the Huawei Watch GT5, Huawei Watch GT3, Huawei Watch GT5 Pro. So really doing quite well, I would say. So overall, for the price, this is a really good performance. I'm quite happy with this. So for cycling indoors, the results look pretty good. But let's make things a bit more difficult and let's take a look at the results for cycling outdoors. This should be harder because of the increased tension on my arm and also because of the bumpiness while riding. But first, if you're finding these videos interesting, it really helps me get access to new devices sooner and helps me reach more people if you like this video and subscribe to the channel. Pressing those two buttons really makes a huge difference, and commenting also helps. I would really appreciate it. Garmin, for instance, has never sent me a watch before release, which is why my reviews are always later than those of other reviewers. Getting more subscribers and more likes is one way to convince them, but back to the testing. So here we have that overview. You've seen this before, but now for biking outside. So this still looks quite okay, though definitely worse than for cycling indoors. So we're looking at the black Huawei Band 10, and as you can see, most points are still quite close to the blue line, though there are many more points away from the blue line. Some are above it, but especially here below it, there's a few clouds of points below the blue line. The correlation is also quite a bit lower, so the R value is now 0.84, so a lot lower than the 0.98 we were looking at before. But before moving on to the individual sessions to see why the points are a bit more deviating, let's take a look at the other Huawei Band. So these are the results for the yellow Huawei Band 10. And as you can see, this is mostly similar. There might be a few more points above it and also below it right here. But the correlation is actually a tiny bit higher now at 0.89. I think this is just random variation. It just looks a tiny bit better. So the points on average are a bit closer to the blue line. But let's take a look at some of the individual cycling sessions to see what's going on. So I'm quickly going to walk you through a few of the bike rides so you can get an impression of how good the heart rate tracking of the Huawei Band 10 is for cycling outside. This is the first one I wanted to show you, and this is for the yellow Huawei Band 10, and it appears that the overall patterns in heart rate are tracked quite accurately, though sometimes some of the details are missed, and you sometimes have some of these straight lines, and it indicates that probably in those moments the Huawei Band 10 lost signal for a bit. So it just registered the same heart rate as before, but it's most likely loss of signal. Overall, this is generally quite okay compared to some of the competition, though definitely some of the details are missed. Now for the same ride here, we have the black version, and this might look a little bit better, but not a lot. Again, some lost signal, and also not all of the peaks are being detected. This second ride honestly looks quite good, except for here in the beginning for the yellow one. The black one looks a bit better here. Here the yellow one looks quite okay. Some details are missed, but I'm happy with this. Black one looks quite bad here. So during most of the ride, it detected a too low heart rate. So this one doesn't look very good. For this ride, the yellow one looks okay. The black one is a bit worse. Here the yellow one did quite okay. Black one a tiny bit worse again. Here the yellow one didn't do so well, but also the black one didn't do that great. Here the yellow one did quite okay again, and the black one is a bit worse. So it appears that on average the black Huawei Band 10 did struggle a little bit more than the yellow one. Now I'm not sure if this is wrist dependent or I just have more trouble positioning the black one correctly on my wrist. Overall still not bad performance, but I wanted to show you all the data I had so you can make your own decision. Still, let's put these results into the context of many other devices. Here we have the same overview as before, but now for biking outside, with again the Huawei Band 10 marked in red. And as you can see, both performed relatively similar compared to many other devices out there. And I would say they're again in the upper middle class of devices. But let's zoom in again. So here we just have all devices with a correlation of 0.7 or higher. And the Huawei devices are maybe unsurprisingly close to some other Huawei devices I tested recently, like the Huawei Watch GT5 Pro, also the GT4 Pro I tested a while ago. We can also see, for instance, right here, the Huawei Band 9, so not doing that differently compared to the previous generation. Potentially a tiny bit better. Some of the somewhat more expensive Huawei devices are potentially doing better, like here we have the Huawei Watch Fit 3, so that's doing quite a bit better, and also the Huawei Watch Fit 2 right here. As far as I know, these also have better heart rate sensors, so it makes sense. And again, some of the best performers out there are the Pixel Watch and also different Apple Watches. So these are really the top performers out there, I would say Apple and Pixel. But the Huawei Band 10 isn't that terrible. There are many worse devices out there. Also, for instance, Garmin often does a lot worse on me than these Huawei Band 10s. That looks okay, though not great, at least that's my opinion. It's definitely better than many devices out there, and for the price, it's not bad, honestly. However, it's not quite as good as the more expensive Apple Watch and Pixel Watch, for instance. On the other hand, the battery life of the Huawei Band 10 is much better than the Pixel and Apple Watches. Unfortunately, I couldn't test the Huawei Band 10 during running outside because of an injury, but I could test it during weightlifting. Quick interruption before moving to those results. You might have been wondering why I'm wearing a Levels cap and a Levels shirt right here. That's because Levels is the app I personally use to track my glucose and also track my macros. I really like them. If you want to support this channel, I affiliate with them so you get the best deal possible and you also support the channel at the same time. Or if you're into running, I really like the Runner app. That's the app I personally use as my running coach. I really like it. That's also linked below. You'll get a 2-week trial to try it out and you support the channel at the same time. I don't do any direct sponsorships with the brands that I review, so this is the way I can keep the channel going. Thanks so much for considering, and let's get back to the test results. Now, weightlifting is actually one of the hardest exercises for a watch to track your heart rate. That's because there's so much tension on your wrist and on your arm. And here we can see that overview for weightlifting for the black Huawei Band 10. And this actually doesn't look that terrible, but I do see some of the expected patterns. So we see quite a few points below the blue line here, and that indicates that likely during some of the sets that I was doing, the Huawei Band 10 wasn't able to fully pick up on those peaks in my heart rate. That also means that the correlation is quite a bit lower now than, for instance, what we saw for cycling indoors at 0.88. And let's now take a look at the yellow Huawei Band 10. It also has identical correlation here at 0.88, and the plot also looks more or less identical. So if we go back and forth between them, we don't see a huge difference. So I expect similar results also when we take a look at some of the individual sessions. So let's do that now. So here we have the first weightlifting session with the black Huawei Band 10, and this is indeed what I was expecting. So we can see all those peaks in heart rate right here according to the reference device. So each time I did a set of exercises, my heart rate quickly increased and then decreased again, and the Huawei Band 10 just wasn't able to track this, at least not the black one. So let's take a look at the yellow one, and as you can see, this might have done a little bit better in the end right here, but overall basically not good enough for weightlifting for this session. This second session mostly shows the same issues. It might be a tiny bit better for the black one, and also maybe a tiny bit better for the yellow one, still not good enough. And also this third one right here, again, basically identical results, just not good enough, and we see the same thing for the yellow one. So I really wouldn't use the Huawei Band 10 for weightlifting. And just for completeness, because I know some of you will ask, here you can see the overview of all the devices I tested in the past, and you can see that purely based on correlation, the Huawei Band 10 doesn't appear to be that bad, or at least it's better than many other devices out there. Still, based on what we just saw, I wouldn't use it, and if we zoom in a bit, we can see it's close to some other Huawei devices as well, like the Huawei Band 7, the Huawei Watch GT 5 Pro. Let's see, we have the Huawei Band 9 right here. So probably similar performance to the previous generation Huawei Band. But I wouldn't use either of these for weightlifting. Only the Apple Watch might be good enough for tracking your heart rate during weightlifting, though the Apple Watch has a lot of dropouts, a lot of moments where it can't detect your heart rate. So you'll rarely get a wrong heart rate with Apple, but you'll have missing heart rates. I would say based on all these results, the performance of the Huawei Band 10 in terms of heart rate tracking is okay, though not great. During indoor cycling, it definitely seems good enough. For outdoor cycling, it was okay, but there it already showed some issues. And for weightlifting, I honestly wouldn't use it. But for at least that last one, I would not use any smartwatch. I would just get a chest strap. So keep these results that you just saw in mind before considering getting the Huawei Band 10. Next, let's test another feature of the Huawei Band 10, the sleep stage tracking. Now, the sleep tracking in general is supposed to be improved according to the Huawei website, though I'm not sure if the actual tracking of the sleep stages is better or if they just added a few new metrics. Let's find out. And here you can see an overview of the sleep test results for a total of 4 nights based on the yellow Huawei Band 10. However, the results are very similar for the black one, as you'll see in a second, so I'll use the yellow one as an example. Now, to test the sleep stage tracking performance, I compared the Huawei Band 10 against the Z-Max EEG headband, which uses EEG, or in other words, brain activity, to measure your sleep. Now, this device also has its limitations, especially when it comes to detecting awake time, but it will give us a general impression of the sleep stage tracking performance of the Huawei Band 10. Now, on top here are the sleep stages as recorded by the Z-Max EEG device, and on the left are the sleep stages as recorded by the Huawei Band 10. Now, each column here sums to 100%, meaning that we can see what percentage of each of the sleep stages according to the Zmax was predicted as a sleep stage by the Huawei Band 10. And if both devices perfectly agree, all values on the diagonal right here should be 100%. First of all, we see that about 42% of what was deep sleep according to the Zmax was also predicted as being deep sleep by the Huawei Band 10, so that's not very good. A lot of it was predicted as either being light sleep or REM sleep, so in total this number is much higher than this 41.5%. Light sleep agreement also wasn't very great at about 46%, so only 46% of what the Zmax said was light sleep was also predicted as light sleep by the Huawei Band 10. A lot of it was confused in this case with deep sleep and REM sleep. And REM sleep agreement is the worst out of all of them at about 36%. And I've seen this for many devices out there. REM sleep appears to be a really hard sleep stage to track. I'm not sure why, but many devices failed to detect this correctly. And more of it was instead detected as being light sleep instead. Now we won't focus on the wake time because the Zmax is not that great at this. It detects a lot of short awake moments that aren't actual awake moments, but just for completeness, because I know some of you might ask for this, about 20% of what the Zmax said was awake time was also awake time according to the Huawei Band 10. But again, let's not focus on this. But now I'm quite curious about the individual nights because this will show us why there's quite a bit of disagreement. I'm gonna use 2 nights as an example, and this is the first night I wanted to share with you. Now on top here we have the sleep stages according to the Zmax EEG headband, with along the horizontal axis the clock time and my sleep stages on the vertical axis. And on the bottom we have a similar plot, but now for the Huawei Band 10. And in purple now right here I highlighted the deep sleep as recorded by the EEG device. And as you can see, this has marginal agreement with the yellow version of the Huawei Band 10. Yes, some of the deep sleep was detected the same, but a lot of extra deep sleep was also detected. Especially here near the end of the night, it's very unlikely I would have that much deep sleep. This is not looking that great, and let's take a look at the other Huawei Band for the same night. This actually looks totally different. That again shows you that I cannot trust this sleep stage tracking. So if we compare the 2 nights here on the bottom, so the yellow one and the black one, you can see how different the deep sleep tracking actually is. So here the Huawei Band 10 yellow version detected a lot of deep sleep here in the beginning, but that wasn't detected by the black one. Only here in the middle and near the end do we see a bit more agreement. Still overall, the fact that there can be such a big difference makes me think we cannot really rely on the deep sleep tracking of the Huawei Band 10. Now let's take a look at another night. So this is the second example right here. Again, there's very limited agreement between the Huawei Band 10 in yellow and the EEG device in terms of deep sleep. So here we can see there's some overlap, but quite little deep sleep was honestly detected by the yellow version. And the black one again looks very different. Yes, in the beginning now it detects some deep sleep as well. This is looking potentially a bit better, but then later on none of the deep sleep matches, and it again detects quite a bit of deep sleep here in the middle of the night, which also the other one detected, but that doesn't appear to have been really there. But what about REM sleep? Does this look any better? Well, let's take a look. So here we have the first night for the yellow version of the Huawei Band 10. And here we can maybe see some overlap. So here the REM sleep is marked in red. Yes, some segments overlap, but again, it's not great overlap. And a lot of extra REM sleep is detected and also a lot of REM sleep is missed. But let's see if the REM sleep patterns at least look similar between the yellow and black version. And they definitely don't. This looks completely different. Look at the two. If we alternate between the two, there's such a big difference in REM sleep tracking. I mean, there is some overlap, but if we slowly go between them, there's too big of a difference for me to trust this. And let's also take a look at this second night right here. So here in the beginning, maybe some of the REM sleep agrees between the EEG device and the yellow version. Later on, it looks completely different. And again, the black version looks very different from the yellow version. It actually detects a bit more REM sleep before 5 AM and after 6 AM. So really that doesn't look very promising for the sleep stage tracking of the Huawei Band 10. But still, maybe you think this isn't that bad, so we can actually put these numbers in a graph with many of the other devices I've tested in the past. And that's displayed in this plot right here. So this graph right here shows you an overview of the agreement of different watches with different reference devices that I used. Along the horizontal axis, we have the average agreement over the individual sleep stages, and on the vertical axis, we have the agreement of the worst sleep stage. That means the better the agreement with the reference device, the more to the top right the device is. Now, as always, I should mention this overview is slightly complicated because I use different reference devices. The devices not marked in any color were tested against the Dream 2 EEG headband. The devices marked in green were tested against the Zmax, so the one we used in this video. And the devices marked in blue-purple were tested against polysomnography, which is the gold standard in sleep stage tracking. And you might be wondering, where are the two Huawei Band 10s? Well, they are right here. So I have a single label pointing to 2 dots, so one right here and one right here, so very close to each other. So both the yellow version and the black version had basically identical results, and they're in the lower portion of this graph, so really among some of the poorer performance. And you can see they're close to the Huawei Band 9, for instance, but also the Mi Band 8, and actually quite a few Huawei and Xiaomi devices are in this region right here. So for instance, the Huawei Watch Fit 2, the Huawei Watch Fit, the Huawei Watch GT3, the GT3 Pro, the Huawei Watch GT4, the Huawei Watch GT5 Pro, the Huawei Band 9. They're all in this area right here. So I think all of them are using the same sleep stage tracking algorithm. That also goes for the Huawei Watch Fit 3 right here. I think across their lineup, like most manufacturers do, Huawei uses the exact same sleep stage tracking algorithm. And I don't think that has changed for the Huawei Band 10. So even though they say improved sleep tracking, I don't think that means improved sleep stage tracking. But you can be the judge. This is the data. I'm showing you directly what it is. If you don't agree, if you think I did something wrong, I'd like to hear it in the comments below. That being said, again, if you want the best sleep stage tracking out there, you probably want to get an Apple Watch, an H-Sleep Pod, an Oura Ring, a Whoop strap, a Fitbit device, and a Pixel Watch. All of these are doing quite well in sleep stage tracking, and it really depends on what else you need from your device, which one you should get. If you also want active heating and cooling of the bed, a lot of other metrics without wearing anything on your body, then the H-Sleep Pod is amazing. It's my favorite sleep intervention device. The device I use every night myself, but it's quite expensive. So if you don't have quite that much money, probably a cheap Fitbit device is your best bet if you want cheap sleep stage tracking that is still quite decent. Based on these results, I think it's pretty likely that nothing has changed in terms of the sleep stage tracking performance of the Huawei Band 10 when comparing it to previous generations and other Huawei watches. Next, I wanted to test the GPS tracking performance of the Huawei Band 10, but there I actually made a mistake, but I'll let Past Rob explain.
Hey there, Past Rob here. I quickly wanted to talk about the GPS tracking performance of the Huawei Band 10. So when I do a Huawei data export, I actually don't get GPX files, so the kind of files you can load into Google Maps. So I had to spend a lot of time writing this code right here to actually transform the raw data into GPX files. So I just spent like half an hour or an hour writing that code or adapting the code, and in the end I got it to work. I was super happy, but then I realized there were actually no GPX files for the time frame where I tested the Huawei Band 10. So I started thinking, why could this be? But then I remembered, anytime I tried to do an outdoor workout with the Huawei Band 10, basically it would take forever for a GPS signal to be connected. In the end, I just always gave up and did an indoor workout instead, so I could still collect the heart rate data, but in the end no GPS tracking was performed. And at the moment I'm actually not sure if it's needed that the Huawei Band 10 needs to be connected to your phone in order to have a GPS signal, or if it just takes forever to get that signal. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe future Rob will explain in a second, but I'm a bit frustrated because actually looking at some other data, so for instance right here I'm looking at the Mi Band 9 Pro, another similar cheaper-ish device, and this tracked my GPS signal no problem. If the quality is actually good, that I'll discuss in a future video, but at least it could connect this signal and it didn't have any major problems. So I'm not sure what's going on here. I'll have to dig a bit deeper, and I just wanted to share my frustration. And let's go back to future Rob, who'll explain a bit more
later.
Hi there, still Past Rob here. So I'm just stupid. I don't know why I thought that the Huawei Band 10 had GPS, but it just doesn't have GPS. And for some reason, if you don't have the phone with you that the watch is connected to, you just can't seem to be able to start a workout that has GPS with it. So this is a bit annoying. Why won't you just allow it to start a workout and then just don't connect a GPS signal? I don't know. This is just something you need to be aware of. I usually connect my watch to different phones, not my main phone, so I didn't have those devices with me. So just be aware that you can only track your GPS with connected GPS, so connected to your phone. And if you don't have your phone with you, you should start an indoor workout instead of an outdoor workout. Okay, now really back to future Rob.
That was really my bad. There is just no built-in GPS in the Huawei Band 10. Somehow I assumed it would be there, but I didn't check, and I should have checked. It will track your ride or your run if you have a phone with you, but I find it quite annoying, at least in my testing, that I could never start an outdoor workout without GPS. Maybe I did something wrong. If so, let me know in the comments below. Overall, the Huawei Band 10 isn't a bad device. For the price, I would say it has decent heart rate tracking, and if you just want some basic sleep metrics like time spent in bed and maybe your HRV, it will likely suffice. However, in this case, spending more money on an Apple Watch or a Pixel Watch will give you better data. If you actually need that kind of data and if you can use it, that's very personal. You have to decide for yourself. If in the end you do decide that the Huawei Band 10 is still the best device out there for you, that could make perfect sense, but I would be interested in your reasoning, so let me know in the comments below. Now, if you want to get sneak previews on results, consider becoming a YouTube member. And if you do decide to get the Huawei Band 10, a Whoop strap, an Aura ring, an H-Sleep Pod 4, another device, or anything at all on Amazon for that matter, even something as small as toilet paper, you want to support the channel and save some money, there are different affiliate links in the description below. Now, given that you watched this whole video on the Huawei Band 10, I think you will like this video on the best sleep stage trackers out there, or this video on the Whoop strap.